wait. It is absolute law that members of Congress have the responsibility and right to perform these oversight visits. Again, this is the second time that Kristi Noem's ICE has not allowed me in. And look, I've been very critical of Kristi Noem's ICE. I have filed articles of impeachment against Kristi Noem. That does not take away my right to perform my congressional duties and look at these detention centers.
People have told us that people are sleeping on concrete floors in there. They're shackled all the time. Toilets are overflowing. What are your thoughts about these situations?
I've seen situations like that. And once we see them, we bring them to the Department of Homeland Security and the folks that are running these facilities. We put a spotlight on it. That's our job, then, to come talk to the press. So just like they have these administrative warrants, which don't follow the law, which are against the Constitution, their little rule, keeping the two of us out, is also against the law. And we're going to speak up, and we're going to speak out, and do everything we can to make sure that the next time we come back, we're in there to do our duties of oversight.
Can Congress hold hearings to look into this on Capitol Hill and say, why is this happening?
Well, they could if my congressional Republican colleagues would speak out and grow a spine and show just a tiny bit of patriotism. I understand that Republicans have a Republican president, but I would remind my colleagues that they did not take an oath to a president. They took an oath to the Constitution, and would just continue to encourage them to follow their oath.
How much does situations like this, where you're not allowed in, again, play into ongoing discussions about funding the Department of Homeland Security?
Well, unfortunately, in the legislation that was passed in the big, not so beautiful bill, the Department of Homeland Security, to carry out this operation here and around the country, this isn't the only place it's happening, has enough funding for the next 5 to 6 years. It's mandatory funding, so even in a shutdown, they get that funding. So many of us, especially on the Appropriations Committee, working with our colleagues on the authorizing committees, are figuring out a way we can keep that from happening. And I think this will just drive home, I think you might agree with me, what we're going to be asking for the vote that should come up in the next 6 to 7 days as we not negotiate, demand that the laws and the Constitution of this country be followed. And this is going to be part of that.
Yeah, we absolutely, not one more penny to Kristi Noem's ICE until they start following the law, until they stop profiling our neighbors, until they stop wearing masks, until all of the things that we've been talking about, body cameras, accountability. It is simply unacceptable, the tactics that ICE are using in our communities right now, and we are going to be doing everything in our power to ensure that these guardrails are put in place before any funding bill will be supported by a number of us. I'm sure as hell not voting for a penny to Trump's ICE until these guardrails are put in place.
I want to make a comment on the body cameras. In 2021, in an appropriation bills, we funded body cameras. In 2022, President Biden said the body cameras will be worn and the information will be transmitted. When President Trump took office, before these searches even started, he told them that they could put the body cameras away. So we just don't want to fund some of these things that are in this bill. That's why it's not a negotiation, or we're being nice about it, or we're asking the president's permission. We are demanding that the Constitution and the law be followed. This is something that, and I've been in Congress longer than Angie has. I've never seen anything like this. No president has ever behaved this way. Breaking the law, breaking the Constitution, and having his administration just decide what they want to do and what they don't want to do. Whether it's the Department of Defense or Homeland Security, it is out of control.
How long were you in there before they gave you the no? Did you have to wait for that, or was it pretty quick?
I asked at 3 o'clock, was probably, what time is it now?
A good 40 minutes.
Yeah,
40 minutes.
they pulled us in for about 40 minutes into a waiting area before they announced that Representative McCollum and I would not be allowed in.
And who was it that was denying you? Who specifically?
That's an interesting question.
That's a
We're
great
gonna find out.
question. We don't know.
I don't think
the
it was-
higher ups.
I don't think it was the gentleman here.
No.
I want to be honest.
No.
I don't think it was the gentleman here. I think they were following their orders, doing their due diligence, made a phone call, and some attorney who doesn't know how to read appropriations law that's been signed by the president or follow the Constitution made a decision to exclude us from doing our jobs.
Two questions. Is Representative Morrison still inside?
Yes.
She is.
Okay. Second question. You said they told you that up to 13 people are allowed. Do you know where they got that number? Who are the 13?
That's part of a. I've got a copy of the lawsuit here, but it's part of a suit that was brought, and a judge came up with a small number for now, while things are still going through the courts and being heard.
But as Representative McCollum just said, the appropriations bills that passed last week had the language that would allow us to perform our congressional oversight duties. And Donald Trump just signed it into law again, and now is ignoring a bill and law that he just signed.
Which tells me they don't want us in these facilities. So I'm so glad Congresswoman Morrison's in there, because she'll speak the
Do you
truth.
think they're trying to hide stuff? Not having you guys get in there?
Well, look, anytime you have somebody who shows up with 8 skull fractures after they were in a facility, it's got to tell you something, that things that are happening here aren't the way that they should be, right?
A couple of weeks ago, we were working to try to get insulin to someone who had been detained, who desperately needed their medication. The week before that, we were desperately trying to find a constituent before he was moved to El Paso who needed his medication. So do I think things are happening in this facility that are anti-American and anti-patriotic? You bet I do.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.